Tonight, impacts of colonial violence is the focus of public hearings at the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls.
Alicia was, she's a wonderful person, and a lot of people loved her and adored her.
A community mourns the loss of a mother of 3 and pleads for motorists to slow down.
We know that the best health outcomes will be achieved in this community when programs and services in health are community-led and designed by you for you.
And promises of better access to health care for First Nations in northern Manitoba. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Another round of hearings into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls has started. And as Kent Driscoll reports, this round is expected to be different.
National inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is in Iqaluit this week. And they're looking backwards to try and look ahead. They're taking a look at the colonial factors that led to the current conditions in Nunavut today, to better understand why so many Indigenous women die early.
If you want to look at violence against Indigenous women and girls, you can't narrow that to fists to flesh. Do you understand? It's about the violation of fundamental human rights, and that includes rights like life, liberty, and the security of the person.
There are 50 interest groups with standing who can ask questions at the inquiry. Only 18 of the 50 groups made the trip. We asked the inquiry why the turnout was so low, and does that hurt the results?
There could have always been more done to get more voices heard, and this is why we asked for more time. And again, I'm really disappointed that our time has been cut short and that voices have been muzzled.
It took longer for colonization to come to Nunavut than it did for the rest of the country. Alyssa P., David D., and Ningmiuk was born on the land. She remembers when it happened. When she had her own family, she wouldn't let her kids speak English at home.
Coming from, the schooling, it was me revenging. It was me going against those that were telling me not to speak my language. It was me that was angry.
The Kikitani Truth Commission started off as a look at whether the RCMP were responsible for the slaughter of Inuit sled dogs between 1950 and 1975 in order to try and force Inuit to move into communities. It expanded much after that. It took 2 years and $2 million. And one of the conclusions they came to was that Inuit families were forced into communities in part because they wouldn't give up their children.
The children had to be in the residential school during school terms. And because the parents missed their children, they could not stay away from their children too long.
According to the Kikitani Truth Commission, the RCMP were in a powerful position.
It is also certain, however, that RCMP used their position of authority to coerce Inuit girls and women into short-term relationships that often ended with the RCMP returning south alone, without babies or partners.
The National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls will be here at the Frobisher Inn in Iqaluit until Thursday, the first of the 5 remaining hearings left on the schedule. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
We want to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. You can send us your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. Women from all walks of life are in the spotlight at the Women in the World Canada Summit. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shared the stage with International Monetary Fund Director Christine Lagarde and journalist Katie Couric for a discussion on gender equality. Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland is also taking part in a panel centering on the global rise of populism. Other speakers and panelists include best-selling author Gillian Flynn, actress Mira Sorvino, and Mi'kmaq lawyer and professor Pam Palmater. Some Métis people in Fort Resolution, Northwest Territories are celebrating this weekend. Many from the area have participated in events like this before, but it was the first time it was for someone who grew up far from their culture. Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs has more about someone who is reclaiming their identity.
Nadine Delarome never learned her Indigenous ways growing up.
Curl up a little bit if you have the snow in there.
But now she hosts events like Métis Heritage Days in her birth home of Deniniquet, Fort Resolution, Northwest Territories.
So I started doing research of what actually happened, why I was adopted out. Was it that my mom was bad or something happened?
Delarome is a 60 scoop survivor taken from the NWT and raised in Toronto. In 2011, she received her adoption files. She then reached out to a community member in Fort Resolution.
The next day I had a phone call from one of my cousins, and we didn't need DNA tests because we have Facebook. And you could see the features were almost identical, and I hadn't expected that at all. I didn't think that I had craved that to see other people that had my face. I just wanted to know where I was from and who I was.
Delarome says she lost a lot by being taken from the north.
In my records, the social worker said that when they got me in one of the foster homes, I was speaking gibberish. I don't think I was speaking gibberish. I think I was speaking my language.
It is here with her own people that Delarome has started reclaiming her culture.
She's writing it, you know. She writes it's any, planet air, you know, planet air, you know, things like that. So what you doing and how are you? So it's any means my friend.
Catherine Boucher is helping Nadine with her language.
Hey, or get up, nigra or nigrai.
She understands what it is like to lose it.
I remember the plane coming in and me pulling me out of my grandfather's arms, and I remember crying. Going to school there, I couldn't speak my language, but that's all I did speak was Denisutine.
As Delarome is proud of today, it still can't be shared with everyone. The courts told her that she was unable to bring her oldest daughter up north because she did not have permanent employment at the time.
I didn't want full custody. I didn't want to take it so that she had primary care and residence here. I just wanted a summer and maybe Christmas time to be able to bring her up, and that she can talk to Catherine every day on the Skype with me to learn the language, that she could be on the Skype when I do these events like this, but I'm not allowed to do that right now.
Delarome sees this as an extension of how the child welfare laws have failed Indigenous people. But she says she will keep fighting to change that.
I'm still trying to figure out the exact of the pink.
Learning her culture one day at a time. Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs, APTN National News, Fort Resolution.
It's time for a quick break, but when we come back, a weekend death has a New Brunswick First Nation renewing their fight for a designated crossing on a provincial highway. But first, here's a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we've got 19 and sunny in St. John's, 21 and rain in Halifax. In Nukshawak is 8 with some light rain, Nain 14 in cloud. Chibougamau is 20 with some rain, Montreal 20 in rain. Sarnia 22 and partial sun and cloud. London's 22 with rain. Big Trout Lake's 13 and rain, 26 and beautiful in Sioux Lookout. Churchill's 10, mostly cloudy. Norway House is also 10. 22 and some rain in Winnipeg, 29 sunny in Brandon. 14 a mix of sun and cloud in Saskatoon, 16 mix of sun and cloud in Regina. Uranium City, some rain in 6, L'Orange, rain and 11, and same with Meadow Lake. Welcome back. A provincial highway runs through Kingsclear First Nation in New Brunswick. The speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour and there's no designated crossing area. On Friday, Alicia Paul, a mother of 3, was hit and killed trying to cross the highway that divides her community. Homes are on each side of the road, but people have no safe way to get to the other side. Paul's death prompted community members to rally on the highway. They want drivers to slow down. Chief Gabriel Atwin says they've been asking the province for a designated crossing since 2016.
Alicia was, she's a wonderful person, and a lot of people loved her and adored her. And something tragic like this to happen is very, very unfortunate and needless.
World Suicide Prevention Day events have been held in Cape Breton for the past 3 years. This weekend, though, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people came together to raise awareness. Member 2 First Nation was part of the Cape Breton rally on World Suicide Prevention Day. And according to Health Canada, suicide rates are 5 times higher for young Indigenous males and 7 times higher for females. Organizers hope to break the stigma, to get people to talk about it, and to know that help is available. Andrea Dennis had 3 family members die by suicide.
My son will be like almost 10 years, and my brother's almost 10 years. They almost died at the same time. And there was no help back in the day, remember? It was like more like, oh, okay, suicide, it's only this. Now suicide, everybody's starting to see it's a mental illness, right? It's a sickness.
The toll-free number to the Canada Suicide Prevention Service is 1-833-456-4566 if you know anyone who needs help. Norway House Cree Nation is celebrating the beginning of what they hope is a new era of healthcare. The federal government has promised $100 million over the next 5 years to construct a new hospital for the northern Manitoba community. The facility will be the largest health centre in the province's history to be entirely controlled by the First Nation. Brittany Hobson brings us more.
1, 2, 3.
It doesn't look like much now, but these shovels in the ground represent a new beginning for a community plagued by years of inadequate health care. On Friday, Norway House Cree Nation began construction on its new health centre, replacing the current hospital.
You know, you get the sense of what this all means for our community, to be able to take on a project of this magnitude, but also to be able to have a facility that is going to be coming to our community for us to use for foreseeable and into the future.
The new project comes with a $100 million price tag, with the federal government footing the bill. The new facility will provide emergency, inpatient, and diagnostic care, and will include a family birthing unit so more expectant mothers can stay in the community to have their baby. Minister of Indigenous Services Jane Philpott called it a historic day.
What we're seeing here today is self-determination in action. We know that the best health outcomes will be achieved in this community when programs and services in health are community-led and designed by you for you.
Norway House was the home of 5-year-old Jordan River Anderson. He lived with a rare muscular disorder and died in Winnipeg in 2005. After the federal and provincial governments could not decide who was responsible for home care. His death established the creation of Jordan's Principle, a response to ensure First Nation kids receive equal access to all government-funded services.
This is a day that we acknowledge as well obviously the loss of Jordan and the tragedy that family had to endure, but recognizing that Jordan will be remembered forever in Canada because of him and what happened to his family. It has been made very clear that no child should be left without the health care that they need.
Jordan's siblings were on hand for the announcement. His oldest sister says Jordan's death was a blessing for First Nation children, despite the family's suffering.
He's still around us somehow, and the way his spirit is still, guiding our leadership and, even the governments. It's nice to see.
The community also hopes to open the facility as a training center for others to use.
To be able to have our youth, our community members further their education, as well as invite others to come and make Norway House their temporary home.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Norway House Cree Nation.
It's time for another break, but when we come back, highlights from a huge music festival in Vancouver featuring numerous Indigenous acts and hosted in conjunction with 3 BC nations. But first, here's the rest of Tuesday's weather. To northern Alberta, we've got 4 and some snow and high level. 16 and rain in Calgary, 12 and rain in Edmonton. Tofino's in at 15, same with Victoria, 22 and rain in Penticton. Dease Lake is sunshine and 12, Fort St. John 26 and sunny. 14 in Dawson City and some sun, 10 in Mayo, some sunshine. Norman Wells, mix of sun and cloud and 4, same with Wrigley and Yellowknife. Tuck is in at -1, Paulituck -3 and some snow. Cambridge Bay, rain and 0, Baker Lake 2 and rain, Repulse Bay 3 and rain. Arctic Bay is the only place with some sunshine up north, 1 degree. Further south, we got 4 in Iqaluit, 3 in Cape Dorset and sunshine. Welcome back. In case you haven't heard yet, a much anticipated series is airing this week on APTN. It is called First Contact, and it's a series that takes 6 Canadians who have some strong ideas about Indigenous people, and it puts them in Indigenous communities. Here's a look.
I think of alcoholism. I think of drug abuse, a whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Well, where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to my community so that you can see with your own eyes, experience with your own bodies, and feel with your own hearts what this community is really about.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
I have not been to a reservation ever. We are going to stick out like sore thumbs.
It's our way of life, and we just try and maintain it as best we can.
If I was to stay at one of those homes, I would find a place to go and take a shower first thing in the morning.
Welcome to Winnipeg's North End.
It is very scary. For one, I'm the minority here.
We're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide.
There's lots of things that happen in the world. We've got to look ahead.
I'm just having a very hard time understanding.
That's not an excuse. You're a prime example of society.
I just want this day to be over with. This is camping for them. For me, it's like hell on earth.
We're not going anywhere. We've always been here. But how can we reconcile? How can we stand together?
Thanks for coming to my community.
I had no idea. It really puts a dark stain on the Canada that I thought I knew. I came here with ignorant views, and you know what? I was wrong.
I've never felt so foreign in my own country.
Just having you here is a good thing.
A lot of our stories are similar.
You know that old saying, walk a mile in my shoes and you'll understand. And we'll get there. We'll just say one heart at a time.
First Contact airs tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday on APTN, and right after Wednesday's show and Thursdays, I'm joined by show producers and participants on a special episode of In Focus. You won't want to miss what they had to say about this experience. Well, there isn't much Aboriginal art displayed in Calgary, but one Indigenous artist was given the chance to paint a gift for his city. It took Callum Teekdan only 6 days to paint this mural in downtown Calgary. It's part of the Beltline Urban Murals project, created to showcase and promote tourism. Out of 11 artists involved in the project, Teekdan is the only one who is Indigenous. He says this piece portrays the power and strength of Indigenous culture.
I call it Sunset Songs. So it was just something for my childhood. When I was young, my grandfather used to get up and drum every morning, like at 5 or 6 in the morning, almost like waking everybody up, I guess. Yeah.
The inaugural Skookum Music Festival wrapped up over the weekend in Vancouver's Stanley Park, and as APTN's Tina House reports, it was a huge success.
An estimated 25,000 people a day took in the 3-day music festival in iconic Stanley Park. With Vancouver's downtown prominently featured in the backdrop, some of the biggest names in music rocked the crowd, including Cold War kids. This is the first time that a music festival of this size has partnered with the 3 host First Nations.
We are so proud to have partnered with the 3 nations that whose lands we are on, and we are celebrating that Indigenous culture. And it isn't just a sign, it isn't just a 1 or 2 elements. It is absolutely interwoven through every aspect of this festival.
Skookum featured some of the biggest Indigenous names in showbiz, including Juno Award winner Murray Porter, who is about to release his newest album, Stand Up.
Well, I got a new album, it's called Stand Up, 11 brand new songs, all original, and I'm really proud of it, and it'll be available on iTunes shortly, and the CDs will be pressed within a month, so it's going to be cool.
Also hitting the stage was Bitterly Divine from the Squamish Nation, and even though it started to rain, everyone still enjoyed the show.
We had a village here, Papias. You know, to be here with our ancestors was one of the most overwhelming experiences I've ever had in my life. Like seeing people in the audience and just them singing along to our songs and knowing that our people were here for thousands of years was just incredible.
And of course, every good festival has to have a wide array of food options. And here at Skookum was Vancouver's first Indigenous food truck, Mr. Bannock. Entrepreneur and head chef Paul Natrell serves up award-winning traditional Indigenous food, and business is good.
I learned so much from other great chefs, like from my past work, just fusing them together, making Indigenous street food here in the Mr. Bannock food truck, representing all Indigenous people and Squamish Nation.
And how's business?
It's good.
I love that we're here in Stanley Park. I love that there's a dozen incredible bands every single day. I love that I get to see my friends. I love that we're using a Chinook jargon term, skookum, to celebrate this. It's catching on. It's really great.
Organizers are already planning another festival again next year, pending approval. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
I should have been in Vancouver on the weekend for that festival. Well, that is all the news I have for you tonight, but you can always visit aptnnews.ca for more Indigenous news anytime. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Good night.